Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander. That's Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at Monday here. What do we got? 6 games or so on the slate on a Monday here. 8 games. I missed a couple with those early lines coming out. We are going to go ahead and get into best bets in this video. We've also got play of props up, so make sure to like and subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. Do want to let you know that we had a wonderful week, I would call it, last week. Another great close to the week as well on Friday. A little like 7-3 night, up about 3.5 units or so on the night that we finished with there, with a bunch of nice little double, like Nate had a little parlay there with Houston to go under, as well as Houston to cover against the Clips. So we'll get into a bunch more stuff here today for you guys. Also want you to head to thelines.com, check out the great written content on the site right now, and use that odds finder tool we have up there. Make sure you're getting the best juice available to you from all of these books giving us bets this NBA season. Nate, go ahead and get into your first best bet for us, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, don't be scared here. Let's go Celtics under 121.5 at Charlotte. I know the Charlotte defense is horrendous, but they can be plucky at home. They were last season a lot. And I just think the Celtics on the road back-to-back here after a 102-100 gritty win went right down to the wire. There's got to be some rest coming here. I mean, I don't know who's going to sit specifically, but I don't think they're going to play their whole starting their whole All-Star 5 here, especially with the Bucks coming to town on Wednesday. They've handled the Hornets, not necessarily by blowing them out with huge point totals in the last 4 meetings, but they've been able to beat them, and I think that they will feel fine about a little more Sam Hauser, Peyton Pritchard, whatever in the offense here, and you got to expect fewer points for the Celtics. And I mean, for me, this is more about what the Celtics, their road splits versus anything about the Hornets defense, which I know can be had. But the Celtics on the road this season, scoring 112 versus 125 at home. Offensive rating way down. 3-point percentage, 34% versus 42% at home. And they're 18th in assist to turnover ratio versus 3rd at home. That is where the Hornets are most vulnerable. It's just assisted field goals. It's just getting good looks. Pace of play to get those open threes is what the Celtics depend on. But this being only their second back-to-back of the season, I don't think we're going to see as much of that pace of play. And I mean, in their last 8 here, they're playing at a 94 pace, and they have not topped 121 in any of those 8 games, despite winning 6 in a row here. So that fits with what we're talking about here. The Hornets have given up plenty of big totals, though, like I'm saying. So that's where this gets scary. They did just give up 130 to the Bucks. Bucks shot an incredible 22 for 45 from 3, back-to-back the next night against the Knicks, which Josh, I think, correctly called. Like, let's get some points for the Knicks here. They're not going to be up to it. But, you look at a larger sample size last season, allowed 116 at home, went 28-13 to the under. So kind of a misconception, lumping them in the same way as maybe the Wizards is just like, this is a fun up-and-down team that never plays defense, but between PJ Washington and Mark Williams, they can protect the rim if their guards do a decent job keeping guys in front of them. Like they have the ability to play defense, and they went 9-5 to the under on a rest advantage last season. I think they will again be up for this game. Who would not be up to play the Celtics right now? And especially when you get a little bit of a rest advantage and you're a younger team, I think they can keep it at least to 120 and force the Celtics to grind out another road win.
This is ballsy. I mean, I don't disagree with that. It's a sharp play. I guess I'll call it that rather than ballsy, because like you said, you're getting ahead of the public's purview of this team. And if you see anything around 120, you might feel the notion to go over on a Celtics team playing one of the worst defensive teams in the league. I'm going to let you have this one for sure. I respect it for sure as well. I think once you get to 122, you're talking about obviously so many points and the back-to-back part of it all. And if it is a blowout, that probably does help you a little bit more. But I don't know. We'll see what these Hornets can do. Obviously, the Celtics better at home. I'm not positive how well they're going to play, but they are better at home themselves. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm going to take a dog myself here in a way. I know you're not taking the Hornets, but I am going to take the points with the Rockets plus 7.5. You can still get that on FanDuel. A full unit on that. And like I said here, this ain't your older brother's Golden State Warriors from 8-ish years ago. And the number one reason for that, and the number one reason I keep feeling so comfortable fading this Golden State Warriors team, is their true shooting percentage is 24th in the league. And it's not the end of the world for a team that might be built like, I don't know, say the Rockets who are in this game with them, or even the team that's been really good on defense all season, like the Timberwolves, who I know you can talk about here in a minute. But it's like Golden State with the true shooting percentage has nothing else, right? There's no other weapons. There's nothing on defense that scares you. They're not turning teams over the way that they have in the past. Usually in the top 5 to 10 in terms of points off of turnovers. Nowhere near the top 10 now in that category. They're getting a lot of second chance points, which is a bad thing for the Warriors because, like I said, this team is predicated on shooting, pace, and space, and mismatches that are formed when guys can't stay in front of Steph Curry or get around screens chasing Klay Thompson and even Andrew Wiggins. And the threat of shooting from Andrew Wiggins and Klay Thompson is just non-existent. Now, Andrew Wiggins had a great game against the Thunder, which is why the Thunder needed overtime and a buzzer beater from Chet Holmgren to even get to overtime. But that was a game that Wiggs was on, I think, a bit of an anomaly for him. Like, I don't think he'll shoot 20% from three the whole season, but I also don't think he'll shoot 45. And I just this moving forward, like this is going to be a much worse matchup for him against a Houston team that's playing so slow on the road, that is much better at home. But the thing is, they played way better comp on the road. They've had we talked about the other day, like a 7-game home stand that they just went through. They lost to the Dubs at the beginning of that, and were pretty much in that game for the whole time until basically like the third quarter, and at the end Steph took over a bit. But I'm a lot less worried about that in this one. When I look at obviously the defensive rating and the sort of battle it grindy style of play that Houston's playing right now, when you look at the way that the Warriors have played against those teams, they just haven't been able to shoot their way out of it this season, which is what I just keep focusing on for them, because everything in their offensive rating, if they're not going to shoot well, then they need to be that sort of helter-skelter team that just creates chaos and then gets open in transition. And they have gone from a top 10 offense in transition to a middle of the pack, slightly worse than that transition team, second fewest fast break points in the league. And that's not like they were always getting to the rim on all these fast breaks, but it is a big part of it is Draymond finding guys in transition, or Steph getting the ball really quickly on the defensive rebound and getting out and going. Their defensive rebound percentage is still bad. Houston's a much better rebounding team than them right now. So I just don't know why they deserve to be favored by 7.5 points, unless this is just totally name recognition versus the Rockets, right?
And it's totally, I mean, it's the Rockets on a back-to-back, which is the only reason I didn't grab this one from you. But when we saw the opening lines, that was the first thing I sent to you, is like, okay, here we go again. Rockets, same number. They should hang around. And it's not like the Warriors have a huge rest advantage having played overtime on Saturday, like you said, and not like they're really well positioned to sort of get the ball rolling at home without Draymond, because their defense is just not the same. It's not like Wiggins is going to continue to have another good game here, because he's likely matched up against Dylan Brooks, who's a good physical defender. FVV can at least do a decent job on Steph chasing him, and the Rockets are a young team. So yeah, I don't worry about the back-to-back as much, especially because they had this weird thing where they had all of last week off. And so yeah, they played Friday, Sunday, but prior to that, plenty of time to practice and get ready for this stretch. And they do get up to face some of these established powers, as we've seen, including a close one with the Lakers last night. Yep. So yeah, you alluded to the Wolves here. Knicks, Wolves, I will go over 213. It's just a very low total here, and I think we can continue to look at the Wolves defense as a bit overrated in a small sample size here. They have gone over in 6 of their last 7 games, and while they have great numbers at home defensively, I don't know. Again, that's a small sample size, and the Knicks have been pretty good, despite your conception that they can't shoot, and you don't really know where the points are coming from. They're averaging 118 their last 6 with a 128 offensive rating. And when these teams have gotten together, the Knicks have been able to get it going from the perimeter. The last two games have been at a 102 pace, very impressive in terms of flow. The Knicks averaging 22 and a half threes per game and 25 free throws against these Wolves. So if you can get it going on the perimeter, that's kind of the misconception that we're dealing with here, is that both these teams, they're physical, they're great rebounding teams. So maybe books or the public think of this as like a Knicks-Cavs matchup, right? Where it's like, if this gets over 200, we're all surprised. That's not necessarily the case. Like, the Knicks are actually 26 in the percentage of points in the paint right now, 20th in free throw rate. Those are the things the Wolves have corrected this year, playing Gobert and Cat more. But yeah, they can still be had if you can get the mid range and the 3 point line going, which the Wolves are both top 10. And I mean, the Knicks are top 10 scoring of those rights. And now they have RJ Barrett back. The one time they had a low output in their last 6 games because RJ was out against the Celtics at the last minute. So that gives you a great perimeter weapon to use against this team. um, and I mean, let's look at the Wolves' offense against this Knicks team. Also, and going against the Knicks, he's going to get it going more than he has in the last couple of years. Back at home, they're averaging 115 a game, and I think the biggest thing is at home the 3 point regression. I mean, opponents are shooting 27% from three in these 6 home games. I think for the Wolves this year, they've still gone over this total in every single game except when they got the Nuggets on a back to back. They got all the way up for that game, held the Nuggets to 89. So I think the regression's gonna come out here. We've seen it on the road where they've allowed opponents to shoot 42% in their last 3 here. And that's how you beat a Gobert-led team, right? You get pace and space, you get some open threes, and you knock them down. So unless this is like truly a choppy, like 104, 102 game, I just don't see it ending that way. So I think you can get over this little total.
I don't really have a read on that. I think there's a bit of dissent on the Coast to Coast show today between the Knicks game and perhaps a bit of the Clippers game that we'll talk about more in play of props. That'll be a fun convo. But I think for this one, I see it as relatively fair. I don't really want to have to guess if the Knicks are going to play better. I am worried about their shooting a lot. That's a big part of why I kept looking at things, and I'll talk about it through the lens of my pick here to close things out for best bets, because I'm taking a same game parlay from the Wolves and Knicks game. I'm taking Rudy Gobert to get 10 plus boards, Mitchell Robinson to get 8 plus rebounds for the Knicks as well, and put those together to get minus 115 on DraftKings, and not overthink this. I don't love taking even a 2-player parlay for negative juice, but I'm going to, because I'd love just taking them down a notch. And I was trying to just take them at their core lines, but it was a little bit high, 11.5 for Rudy Gobert, probably up to about 9, 8.5 at least for Mitch Rob. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a choppy game. I think there might be a bit of pace here and there, depending on if the T-Wolves want to run it up their throat. The Knicks are a little bit, they're a lot more, not a little bit, they're a lot a bit more vulnerable on the perimeter than they are once you get into the paint with Mitchell Robinson, one of the best defensive centers in the league, obviously, even Hartenstein off the bench, and then Jay Randall has been bought in a bit more when he actually hustles back on D and gets back there, then he is pretty good down low. That's why they're the number one rebounding team in the league, and the T-Wolves aren't like super far behind by any means. The T-Wolves are also limiting opposing centers as almost as well as the Knicks are. So it's really just a battle of like the two strengths of these teams down low with Rudy and Mitch Rob. I think they're both ripe to get plenty of boards against each other because they're both going to just sort of be needed because of each other, right? They're because the other team has Mitch Rob or Rudy Gobert, they're usually going to be playing the same minutes, and you expect Mitch Rob to be following Rudy's minutes a lot more than you care about Rudy needing to stop Mitchell Robinson in any way. It's a lot more of Rudy being down low, and if he's free to just go find other guys, he's going to get a lot of blocks, get a lot of rebounds. So Gobert versus Mitch Rob in his last 2 only had an average of 8 boards per game in 35 minutes. He did get into a little bit of foul trouble, and it was a lot worse of a team last year when you look at the Minnesota Timberwolves space, both on defense and on offense. And that's allowed Rudy to get a lot more offensive rebounds this year as well. He still leads the league in rebound chances. Those have dwindled a little bit, and I've been talking a lot about how Cat is a really good bet for over rebounds because Rudy's really boxing everybody out, and Cat has an incredible rebound chance percentage. So on the chances that Cat has, he gets like the second highest percentage of them. Rudy's not that high up, but because he has so many, 10 just seems inevitable at this point. I kept talking to you about that New York shooting. I mean, they're bottom 5 in terms of shoot at field. First of all, they shoot the 5th most field goal attempts, which is crazy because they play at the slowest pace in the league, but they get a lot of offensive rebounds, which leads to that as well. Still, the shooting woes are just wild. 27th in true shooting percentage, 25th in effective field goal percentage. I understand that takes into account where they're shooting from because they're shooting a lot of threes. So like their shots are going to be a lot they're going to go in less, but the true shooting takes into account that the 3-point shot is harder, and it's still a really nasty true shooting percentage for this team right now with the amount of field goals that they're putting up. So I think the T-Wolves are going to have an opportunity to get a few more rebounds on defense where they're going to be able to close out on the Knicks pretty well, honestly. I do agree that RJ Barrett being out in that last game, and it was also a back-to-back versus the C's where they went, pretty far under, and other than that, they've scored plenty of points, and so I'm fine with it. I don't think the scoring of a ton of points is necessarily going to mean there's fewer rebounds. I think there's going to be a good amount of them, and there might be getting over 215 doesn't mean that these guys aren't going to have 18 boards between the two of them.
Yeah, I think your way is a little more conservative to play it. That's why you're at minus 115, but I think it's a solid way to play this game and just depend on rebounds if it does wind up being that choppy. But we could still go over. Because like I said, yeah, they played at a 102 pace the last couple times they've gotten together, which is a complete anomaly, I guess, when you look at the Knicks in general. But when you look at them playing in the Western Conference teams, though, last year, 117 a game, pace goes up to 97.6, which is at least, is closer to league average. And they get nearly 28 free throw attempts per game. So, I mean, there is something to be said about Jalen Brunson against these Western Conference teams, and particularly Rudy Gobert, who I believe he has embarrassed when he was part of the Mavs and when he got an opportunity to go against him on the Jazz. He can break down this defense, and Jalen's starting to get it going now. So, I mean, that's just why I do believe in this Knicks offense getting to maybe 105. That's what we're talking about, 105 to 108 for both teams. It's not a huge total, and I do have faith in it.
Let's go. Let's get 105 points tonight, Knicks. That shouldn't be that difficult, but that is all the time we have for you in Best Bets. Make sure to like and subscribe to the page. Check out the play of props that we have up for you as well. Up about 14 and a half units on the play of props. Started out a little bit slow and definitely picked things up. So we are riding high. Continue to track those with us. And until we see you next, happy betting.